So, roughly 2 years after I sat down to celebrate the return of Kula Shaker's Natural Magick, the band brings out a new full length album, their eighth one, called Wormslayer. But is this an album that slays, or rather an album that should be slain? Let's find out in this fresh review. Ever since their emergence in the mid-90s, Kula Shaker guaranteed heavily late 60s and Indian raga inspired psychedelic rock with a strong pop sensibility and a certain Britpop swagger. They disbanded for a few years in the late 90s, reunited, had their ups and downs, but since the return of original keyboard and organ player Jay Darlington, the four friends seem to be in high spirits and inspired again to keep the Kula Shaker flame alive. After 2024's Natural Magick, which I also reviewed here on the channel, this is the second album with the restored original lineup, this time around with a bit of a more epic scope, at least according to frontman Crispian Mills. The album is called Wormslayer, so presumably the band is out for a ride to slay a few ones. Worms are usually associated with decay, parasites, but also are used as imagery for something uncanny or something evil, and at the same time they often are images of the lowest possible life form. People or souls are turned into worms by evil magic or as a punishment, for example. I had the privilege to gain access to the full album before its official release. Don't worry, it's all legal. And yeah, I'm quite happy to tell you about my impressions, my thoughts, and give you my review of Wormslayer before it officially drops on the 30th of January. In fact, I've been listening to this album since last November, so I really try to familiarize myself with the new material to play it fair. Often I give you small music clips, small snippets from tracks of the albums that I talk about. Since this album hasn't been released officially yet, I'll try and hold back and stick to the songs that have been officially released already, that are available as singles from the album. But of course, I'll talk about all of the tracks. The title Wormslayer to me sounds martial, but also cinematic, and with the cover artwork that looks a lot like a Bollywood fantasy epic, I truly, without having heard a single note, get a lot of classic Kula Shaker vibes. Hindu mysticism and spirituality have always played an important role in the band's music, in their ethics or aesthetics, and also in Crispian Mills's lyricism. I looked a little bit into it, but I couldn't really find a figure or a divinity in Indian spirituality that is referred to as Wormslayer. To me, the cover artwork looks like we see the goddess Kali, who can take on different forms and functions, but basically stands for time, death, and destruction, but not necessarily in terms of an evil goddess or a demon. In fact, she is considered the mother of the universe and the ruler of time. And the severed human head in one of her hands signifies the human ego that has to succumb to divine knowledge. I'm sure the single band members could give us whole lectures on the symbolism and Hinduism in general, but so much for the imagery. Of course, what we are here for is first and foremost the music. The album opener is called Lucky Number, and I guess the lucky number for Kula Shaker is the number 8. At least this is their 8th album, and opening with a track called Lucky Number leads to this notion here. This is a nice toe tapper with a catchy melody and psychedelic touches. The guitar and organ blend together into this typical Kula Shaker sound. I especially like Crispian Mills's guitar tone. I like his guitar tone in general, and especially when he plays solo, which he does here, but not for the only time, on Wormslayer, so we are off to a good start into the album. Track 2, Good Money, is the first song in a cycle of songs on this album. A couple of songs that are thematically connected and tell the story of a winged boy. This was also released as a single with a hilariously zany, crazy video, all made with AI. A video concept that allegedly was developed by a couple of monkeys who simply hacked something on a computer keyboard and thus came up with the concept for this video. Kula Shaker definitely have a sense of humor. The song, as I perceive it, is written from the perspective of a shady manager or artist agent, a greedy entrepreneur, a circus director who discovers this winged boy and wants to market him as a kind of curiosity or freak. A lot can be read into this, most obviously, maybe a bitter or cynical view of the music business, show business in general, and the pressure that comes with being a commercial pop or rock star. Also, what is depicted is that general sense of draining or milking the cash cow as long as is possible. Here today, gone tomorrow. That seems to be a little bit of the spirit within the music business these days. This pressure to come up with hits also is hinted at in a very tongue-in-cheek moment when Kula Shaker quote themselves. There's a little break where I definitely hear the famous Tatva guitar lick from 1996. I'm gonna make you a star. They're gonna love you as you are. We're gonna make good money. The song itself has got a bouncy groove, female background singers who add a little bit of funk, and lots of Indian percussion. I believe this is a track that will sound great in a live setting and reminds me a little bit of the groove of the title track from Natural Magick. And as soon as you've fallen for the groove, you will be lured in to sign a contract and sell your soul to the midnight circus. This definitely is a fun track, a good choice for a single, plus a sarcastic sneer in the lyrics. I always like that if it's delivered in a good way. Fittingly, this maybe is the most commercial sounding track on Wormslayer. You're gonna go far. They're gonna love you as you are. We're gonna make good money. Come on, boy, don't desert us. Come and run the freaks at the midnight circus. Stand up tall, spread your wings. Make them pay in dollars and golden rings. Change of the Light Brigade, which was, I think, the first track released prior to the album, starts off as an more acoustic rock song, but then we get ominous lyrics, a heavy bass, and increasingly fuzzy guitar. But the track always remains quite catchy, and the more often you listen to it, the more you realize that this is quite a banger with lyrics that are meant to be a call to arms or a wake-up call for more awareness and to stand up against all contemporary warmongers. Shake off your own mental apathy. A song with a clear message that demonstrates that Kula Shaker are still doing strong singles in 2025, or rather now 2026. Drinking blood in the shadows, drinking your blood and fading away. Don't turn your back on the shadows, following me, following they. We're all drinking blood in the shadows. Track 4, Little Darling. My notes say that this is spaghetti western meets psych folk. Elements that Kula Shaker also have played with before, and overall the more somber atmosphere of this track sometimes reminded me of songs from their album Pilgrim's Progress. Beautifully blistering guitar arpeggios in the chorus, and in general this is another solid track, especially due to the guitar work. Little Darling to me feels a little bit like it is a song to the artistic muse, maybe, but the lyrics leave a lot of ground for various interpretations. Broke as Folk, also a single, applies a mellow psychedelic groove somewhere between Pink Floyd, especially the intro, and The Doors, especially the bass line and the organ solo. The band is in great shape, and this is musically a very fun track, one of my favorites so far. In terms of the lyrics, again, I got the feeling that this is another ironic, maybe a little bit bitter look at being a rock star, a musician who doesn't make any money these days due to all the changes and the cynicism in the industry. But interestingly, there's also an allusion to Crispian's mother, Hayley Mills, who was an actress and in her past for a while a child actor with the Walt Disney Studios. In true Kula Shaker fashion, however, the ultimate message of the song is that true wealth in life isn't about money. There ain't nothing that I can do about it. Sing my song and try to laugh about it. Now the king has lost his crown, and the news is going round. Next we get Be Merciful, a track that has been around for a while now, for several years, in the form of a demo version or an unfinished studio track. Finally, it has found its official home here on Wormslayer, and it starts off as acoustic psychedelic ballad, but halfway through, soulful female backing vocals are added, and the song turns more into a kind of epic rock jam. Crispian Mills sings mysterious lyrics such as, "You can hypnotize me with a glance. You're the thief to steal away my heart. I wish I could trust you, but your crooked smile dances on a serpent for your lover's eyes." The following Shawnee returns to the song cycle about the winged boy, who, as we now learn, seems to be called Shawnee. This story about a boy with wings is based on a tale, a story that Crispian Mills heard from his grandmother. Shawnee features a gorgeous acoustic guitar and harmony vocals until it gets more electric and passionate. Shawnee comes from the Isle of Innisfree, A little bit of W.B. Yeats here, apparently, in the lyrics. And the lyric I wishes for him to return home. Apparently, after Shawnee had been made a circus freak and he crashed and burned. Parts of the song, especially the acoustic parts, have traces of the Beatles around the White Album. The song at the same time also is a bit psychedelic and also a bit epic. I'm a fan of it. I think this is a great album track. The story immediately continues with the next song, The Winged Boy, which has another Pink Floyd informed intro somewhere between The Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Echoes. The sound feels like a ride through mist and rain. Organ and guitar pierce through the steady pulse that is created by the bass guitar. Shawnee is called home by means of what almost sounds like a spell or invocation. This is one of the most psychedelic tracks on Wormslayer. Day for Night brings the listeners back to earth with a simplistic acoustic tune. It's a song of comfort and optimism that functions as a calm breather before the epic title track. Wormslayer starts gently with piano and acoustic guitar, as well as gentle Sanskrit chants, but then, just like the worm in the lyrics it turns into a psychedelic groove with a meandering organ, following in the footsteps of tracks like Govinda or Mystical Machine Gun, with eventually unusually heavy parts where Crispian Mills really gets into guitar distortion. It's the band's most epic and also progressive track to date, looking at evil that rears its head and a call to all of us to withstand evil and identify it. This song, with its gritty riff and Indian elements, one of Kula Shaker's beloved trademarks, I think brings together everything that fans love about this band. It ends with a victory to Rama chant, and this would have been a fulminant finale to the album, but instead the band decided to send off the listeners with the musically more grounded and at the same time lyrically very metaphysical The Dust Beneath Our Feet. This one's got a laid-back folk rock sound, partly like Steelers Wheel or Buffalo Springfield. It's a nice get-out track with harmonica at the end and really feels like getting on the tour bus and rolling down the highway. Everything exists, everything is true, everything is real and waiting for you, and the earth is just a little dust beneath our feet. Wormslayer, with its less commercial approach and quite a lot of ambition, often, at least in my opinion, harks back to Kula Shaker's a little bit ill-fated second album, Peasant Pigs and Astronauts. There's less pop on this album than on the previous Natural Magick, and something darker seems to have crept not only into the lyrics but the underlying layers of the music of Kula Shaker. The sound, of course, consists all of elements one can hear on psychedelic rock albums from the late 60s, but it is unmistakably Kula Shaker. This is a great album not only for old fans of Kula Shaker, but also for newbies who maybe have never heard another Kula Shaker album before, and for fans of a playful retro sound in general. Personally, I would find it interesting to have the song cycle about Shawnee expanded and maybe next time get a full-blown rock opera or concept album from Crispian Mills and Co. If hard pressed, I would say that I had marginally more fun with the previous release, but basically these two new albums from Kula Shaker, or the latest ones, Natural Magick and Wormslayer, are pretty much up to par. So that I give Wormslayer a 7.75 out of 10. It's definitely a good album. It's recommended and more than worthwhile. Kula Shaker stay true to themselves, but still add great new songs to their catalog. So that's it for a first fresh review. Stay tuned for more Murdock Music Minutes, and remember, you're a Wormslayer.